And you are rolling. Take it away.
Good morning. Get an extra cup of coffee now if you need it. We are going to introduce our three panelists and get started as people continue to roll in. Thank you for joining us this morning. This topic of business development and planning for the next normal is, of course, constantly on all of our minds, and maybe even more particularly in January, a new year, as we're looking to business development plans for the year to come with a great deal of uncertainty attached to them. I'm beyond thrilled to be able to introduce our three panelists. And in researching their bios, it felt almost silly to have introductions for three women who I think everybody in Boston must know. But Tricia Filippone is the Vice President of Business Development at Suffolk Construction. Prior to joining Suffolk, Tricia held development and finance leadership positions at institutions including UMass, the University of Massachusetts Building Authority, the Broad Institute, Harvard University, and the Massachusetts Water Resource Authority. As executive director of UMBA, Ms. Filippone oversaw a $3.1 billion growth plan that included the building and renovation of facilities across all UMass campuses. Her roles at the Broad Institute included chief financial officer and assistant treasurer and many others. And previously, she was the director of the Alston Finance for the multi-billion-dollar Alston Campus Development Initiative at Harvard University. Tricia's LinkedIn profile says that she has a particular strength in leading organizations through significant transition points. Well, she joined Suffolk in March of 2020, so I guess she's probably right where she likes to be.
Thank you.
Sarah McGillicuddy, thank you for joining us. Sarah is Director of Business Development at BR+A, a position that she also began right before we headed into lockdown, having joined the global engineering firm in February of 2020. In addition to her 15 years of business development experience in leading Boston architecture, engineering, and construction firms, Sarah has been a leader in more AEC organizations in Boston than I even knew existed. She's currently serving as co-chair of CoreNet Awards Committee. She's a founding board member and the incoming president of Professional Women in Construction's Boston chapter. She's the chair of IFMA Boston and a former president of SMPS Boston. Sarah is also the recipient of SMPS Boston's 2018 Marketing and BD Professional of the Year Award, and most recently recognized by Engineering News Record New England as one of 2019's top young professionals. And last but not least by any stretch, Marcia Miller is the Director of Corporate Marketing and Client Relations at Vanderweil Engineers. Marcia, thank you so much for being with us. Marcia leads firm-wide business development and marketing for all 9 of Vanderweil's 475-person firm's offices. It is impossible to miss Marcia's influence on the industry. She frequently offers education and advice through presentations, trainings, and mentoring at the BSA, BOMA, SMPS, and NIOP, just to name a few. Something that I did not know about Marcia before organizing this event was that she began her career as an architectural draftsperson. So she knows both sides of the drawing board. Luckily for us, she has built her career in marketing and business development and is here to share her multidisciplinary expertise with us this morning. So thank you to you three women so much for being with us. A little bit of housekeeping. I'd like to suggest that if you're not one of our panelists, that you go ahead and mute your microphones. I see that pretty much everybody has already done that. And we've structured our conversation loosely around these 4 big topics, which are things that emerged during our initial conversations together. But we're going to sort of let the conversation, move as it will. We will save questions and answers for the end. If you feel like you'd like to throw something into the chat, go ahead and do it. We probably won't look at it until we hit our Q&A period. We'll save the last 15 or 20 minutes of our time for Q&A. So thank you for understanding the ground rules. And without further ado, I say let's jump into the conversation this morning. The first topic that we had identified that we wanted to talk about was virtual networking. We know that virtual meet and greets have some advantages. And the pandemic has been a crash course in Zoom, to use Sarah's words. So I wonder whether we could all just talk a little bit about the potential advantages of meet and greets in this weird virtual environment.
Do you want me to kick it off, Kate?
You kick it off, Sarah. I just quoted you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a positive of this is that, pre-COVID, if I wanted to meet with a client in New York or South Carolina, Chicago, I would have to wait until I was planning a visit there, and hope that my schedule would align with theirs, that they would be able to meet with me, not cancel on the last minute. And, we've all had this crash course in Zoom. We all know how to use it now. So it's really, I think, torn down barriers and connecting, for me anyway, across state lines that was previously prohibited by travel. So that's been a nice benefit.
And I would just add that, I just started this role in the beginning of April, and was leaving my role at UMass and had all these lunches and coffees scheduled. So interesting to introduce yourself as in a new role at Suffolk, to all of the people that I wanted to reach out to and talk to. And, in the beginning, everyone was like, well, in 3 weeks, I'll meet you for lunch or I'll meet you for coffee. And 3 weeks turned into 10 months. So quickly, I think people kind of changed and got comfortable with not just doing phone calls, but doing video chats. And it seems like people are more willing. I don't think their schedules are as packed, and you can get on someone's calendar at the beginning of the week, towards the end of the week, or the following week. So it's been a refreshing change, and it's certainly more efficient too, as far as not driving somewhere. It never takes the place of in-person meetings, but you can have a good quality 45-minute catch up, and have a good impactful meeting.
Mhm. I know one thing that came up during our prior conversations was that virtual networking is different now. We used to rely so much on conferences to meet people, and to have separate serendipitous meetings in the hallway. But with conferences and events greatly reduced as part of BD, where are you focusing your attention? Or have you gone to virtual conferences and had any success with them?
Yes, I've gone to a couple of virtual conferences, and some of them were just very much a Zoom meeting with a panel, and then others were very interactive and creative, where they had, when you're actually in a session, you can see who's in the session, and there's chats between people. So it's like you're in the room with them and connecting with them. They have breakout sessions. They have roundtable sessions. They have as if you're in the ballroom and just walking into people. So everything was taped and videoed, so you could watch it afterwards too, as well. So very, very creative, and more of a benefit of not actually being there in person, but more of a benefit than I think people thought you would achieve from going to that virtual. And I would highly recommend it.
I'd also like to say I'd highly recommend, when you have the opportunity to network people through those virtual breakout sessions, that you definitely take advantage of that. Because I know a lot of times people often leave, or they'll throw you into virtual rooms where you're not really sure who's going to pop up. But I mean, it's the more people you know, the better. So it's definitely to an advantage to take advantage of that opportunity. And I think that, again, nothing is as good as being face to face, but I mean, you are video to video like we are now. So
I would say that, sorry to disagree with you, Trisha, but I hate virtual conferences. I think they're the worst. And, I love the breakout rooms. I agree that with Marcia, that people have gotten really creative and pivoted as best they could during this pandemic to recreate that conference experience. But that is one thing that I feel really strongly that can't be duplicated over Zoom. If you're standing next to someone, catching up, having a coffee, and someone walks by that they don't know, and they introduce you, and that energy, and the dinners, and like I do miss that a lot. I think that's just a really difficult thing to replicate in this electronic world we're in now. I think the breakout rooms can be really impactful. I think a lot of organizations have struggled to figure out how to do them well. Like I attended an event recently and I thought that it was a program panel and I was immediately put into a breakout room right off the bat. And I had no idea, that was kind of going to be the cadence of the schedule. And then oftentimes when the breakout rooms are at the end, I think people just use that as a time to kind of piece out. And so you lose like a good chunk of your audience. So I think if you're in a position where you're planning breakout rooms, I'd highly recommend putting them in the middle and ensuring that you have a question or point of focus to guide a conversation. And they can be really impactful.
I'm going to ask a question that nobody can answer, but Sarah, Marcia, and Trisha too. I've heard you all say that nothing can replace being in person. We've been replacing being in person for 10 months. I feel pretty good. I mean, you can see where I sleep, but other than that, it's really good. So I'm going to ask you the impossible question. Why? Why doesn't virtual ever really replace what we can do in person?
I just don't think you make that personal connection that you would do in person. I mean, it's just a little more casual. You get to know the person more on a more social level, and you just know them as a person. And you can get that from, a lot of my video conferencings have been with people I've known. I've had some with people I've never met before. But I just think you make that connection as a person sooner and quicker in person. And that's really what I'm saying. You can't really replicate, or you miss out on.
Yeah, I agree. I've had a lot of meetings as well because I've had to do a lot of cold calls for people that I don't know. And you still get that sense because you're in front of everybody in the camera, but it's just nothing's like being in the same room. So
I am a hugger and I miss
Theme
being able,
2022.
yeah, I miss being able to hug people. And, I've been conversing with this colleague of mine in Philly for close to a year. And just last week I was like, are you tall? Like how tall are you? Because I couldn't tell from Zoom. And yeah, maybe that doesn't impact our relationship, but there's just something about being able to reach out and touch someone and share the same physical space. That said, I think that, I've appreciated a lot of the connections that I've made and the fact that people are more accessible. So I don't think it's all negative by any means. And I think as a community and as an industry, we've adapted incredibly well. But for those larger connections where you're supposed to make a lot of connections in a shorter period of time, that I just don't think can be replicated digitally.
I want to go back to something that you said, Marcia. You were saying that you've done a lot of cold calls. Has that gotten easier now that we're all kind of the sort of experience of reaching out has been leveled in the virtual environment?
I don't know if it's gotten easier, but it's something that you definitely just have to jump into. If you're a kind of person that's not really your strong suit or you don't like to do it, it's kind of like we're forced to now because we have to make those connections. You have to build that backlog. And I think that it can be a little bit harder in that I just find that I have to call people constantly. I keep a log of when I call people, the times that I call them. Like you have to be strategic and you don't want to stalk anybody or harass them. But again, they don't know you. And it's just reaching out to make that connection so you can reach out to LinkedIn or however you want to do it, and then call and then email. So I think that it's a little bit harder in the sense too that people are not in the office, and a lot of times their calls are going directly to their cell phones or they're going straight to their voicemail, and that's a little bit problematic. That's why I think it's really important that you are organized in your structure of calling folks, because again, it's like now I'm calling people's cell phones where before I kind of reserved that for like my last resort because I don't want to call somebody's cell phone that I don't know. But now it's like that's the only way you can get in contact with people. So it's just a different approach to it. And I don't know if it's harder or not, but I mean, I've definitely been successful. I mean, you're never successful like 100%, but I'm happy that I have been able to schedule meetings with clients that, we've never talked to before. So, but it's a little bit of a challenge. I wish I could go see them, but we'll call and email and LinkedIn for now.
Yeah, yeah. I've been wondering with everybody, sort of isolated during quarantine, I wonder whether people are more open to cold calls or other forms of networking, maybe unusual forms of casual networking. Have any of you engaged in, I don't know, virtual happy hours? I haven't.
Yes, definitely virtual happy hours. So I a lot of professional organizations that I belong to. Early on, we've had a lot of virtual happy hours or virtual holiday parties with breakout sessions, and we were able to do different things like wine tastings, and they're creative trivia. So there's a lot of different things that you can do, and just make that contact with people. And you can be on a call like this with a professional organization, and it's like everybody is texting each other during the meeting, catching up with people. So it's, in some ways it's different, but it's you're having that opportunity to connect with people on a regular basis, which is great.
I think you also need to be open to people's comfort levels. I know, for example, I'll give a client, if they want to meet in person, and I know we're going to social distance 10 feet apart, I do give them the opportunity to say, okay, let's meet virtual, let's meet on a golf course, or I even give the option to meet via phone, because some people they don't want to be on a virtual video call. And so I also think that it's important too that initially when we first started out in this virtual realm, I always ask what platform they like to use, because not everybody has Zoom, not everybody has Teams. I just want it to be as accessible as possible, and I feel like you should still be that way, just to give people options. Because again, some people are okay with meeting, as long as you're wearing masks, etc. So.
Mhm.
I welcome kind of the unplanned Zoom at this point because my schedule is so packed with calls. I recently traded voicemails with a client and I refused to schedule a Zoom because I'm just like, then it's an obligation. It's not going to be as fun of a conversation. And, you know, definitely done some of the creative events that were discussed, and that is really fun. But I also just want to put a plug in there for the unplanned phone call, because I think it can be a nice break from the scheduled monotony of meeting after meeting.
And I think the phone call is important too if you're in the car commuting. Some
Yeah.
people are still commuting, but to me, that was always valuable time that I did not want to waste, and make sure I was connecting with people all the time. So, and people still have to go to doctor's appointments and run errands. So to have the opportunity to catch up with someone on the phone in the car, I think is important.
Yeah, and it seems like we're also kind of overlooked because you don't have to travel to a meeting. And it's just, you can do meeting after meeting after meeting, like 5 in a row. And so, yeah, that's important to just be able to be flexible. And, the whole overlooking thing too, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I remember that's something that came up in our prior conversation was how do you manage a team or self-manage business development, your busy business development lives when now our calendars look like a Lego stack. I have kids, a Lego stack of different colors. It's just solid blocks of meetings. When does the work happen that's supposed to happen out of these meetings? And I think you, Sarah, said that time management just felt harder than ever. I'm curious to hear about how you're managing the time in between all of these meetings, or how else you're breaking out of the stack.
Yeah. So I've been trying to, I got the proverbial COVID puppy. So, I've been trying to do meetings while walking my dog, for example, around the reservoir, so that I'm getting outside and and kind of killing two birds with one stone. But yeah, that's been a really tough lesson learned for me, because as many of you know, to me, the most critical thing of successful business development is follow-up. And if you can't follow up, then, you know, that's not good. And when you're in these back-to-back meetings and then you get out of them and you have all these other emails that have come in, but yet you have all this information you've promised people, finding the time to manage all of that when someone sees an opening in your calendar and just sticks a meeting in there is really tough. And it took me several months to block focus time in every week so that I just have a life preserver every day where at least I have a chunk of an hour where I can regroup, I can prioritize, I can address the things that are making me feel the most stressed. But it took me a while to get there. And Marcia, I think it was your point earlier, you know, that lack of downtime, like of not commuting and not having that time to kind of organize my day and my mind in the car, that like reset to just instead dive right into the day. I do miss that. Because, you know, I was talking with Trisha yesterday and the meetings just get earlier and earlier because people just assume you can roll out of bed and
This meeting has always
right
been at
on.
8:15 in the morning. It will never change. I'm sorry, and you're welcome.
Yeah.
I hear that. Yeah, that transition time is certainly missed.
I think that the nice thing though about doing virtual meeting calls is that you're organized. For myself anyway, having your Excel sheets up, your information ready to go. And when you do have follow up, I just email right away. Oh, well, here's this, or did you see this RFP, or just sending it out. And there's no reason to make some elaborate email. And, you know, I don't even know if I say thank you on some things. I mean, we say thank you to each other, but I'm just like, here's this Excel file, you know, and just do it right then and there during the meeting instead of waiting, because we have that capability, because we're sitting there reading notes. And that's the one thing that's really, I think, has been a plus with business development. I know before we have our little black books, or, you know, when we meet, we're taking notes, but now it's like, I've got the network and it's like, I'm able to get out, disseminate this information right away so that we can share and really have very productive meetings. I think that has definitely been a plus for COVID. So, and I think that definitely will continue. And I know that even meeting people in person, I probably will still, you know, bring my iPad or bring my laptop, because it's helpful to be organized and to be able to share clear and concise information.
Yeah, or even be able to chat in the meeting and put a link right in the chat of something you're thinking of. Although a funny thing I do find now is that because my Zoom screen is here and like my larger screen is here, I feel the need to say, you know, I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to find this thing. I'm not reading emails. I'm doing something for you. But yes, that is a great point, Marcia, of having everything right there is nice in real time.
And I would agree. I mean, I've spent a lot of time, you know, looking up things when I'm on the phone with people and sending the information they're requesting to them right away. And it's more efficient and does help with not missing out on the follow-up in doing it in a very timely basis. So, and I love the fact that you can be on a call and taking notes discreetly, and, you know, just looking up your notes pretty easily as well. So.
Yeah, I love that during the course of this meeting, I was able to look down and discover that one of my colleagues said I mispronounced the Broad Institute. So note to self and anybody else who's never heard it pronounced before. Sometimes it can be a blessing and a curse, I guess. I was wondering about that little black book of yours, Marcia, and of lots of people's, and how our current virtual environment has perhaps democratized information about business development across offices. I mean, if the little black book is the net, do we all have the same black book?
Well, I think with technology and sharing and everything, if you're not using something like some people use HubSpot or something like that, or, you know, we happen to use Deltek, but even just keeping notes in OneNote, because if you have Microsoft Office, you have access to OneNote. I think that's kind of like a great resource. I like to use it because you can share it with everybody. You can share it with individuals or the whole team, or you can also organize your notes and put them on 360 on cloud. And then everybody has access to that particular folder information. The only drawback with putting it on the cloud like that is that when somebody's in the actual file, you can't get in it. But with OneNote, you're able to access everything real time, and you can even see who has last edited the document because their name is by it. But I feel like for us, with multiple offices, the pandemic, I feel, has brought us closer together. I mean, in the fact that we're sharing these leads, because I think the AEC industry has always realized that it's a small world because, we could bump into each other in Korea, or you could be somewhere, in Texas. But now even more so, there's the need to share. And I think there's importance in that because business development, historically, I feel sometimes we like to keep things close best, even within our company. And I mean, just being real frank about things, you're dealing with money, leads, and people have different territories. But I feel like for business development to be successful, that sharing between the offices, sharing of the projects, and that knowledge just only makes your company stronger because people can have their leads and things like that, but it's just important that everybody's in the know, that you're not tripping over each other, and platforms like OneNote, or just being able to share that information, that's really important. And being at Vanderwall for 17 years now, it's like you get it with people, when people are not as apt to share, but I just think it's been great. So
I'm curious for you, Tricia, and you, Sarah, having arrived at your new positions either on the eve of or the morning after lockdown, how have certain technologies, maybe CRMs or client databases or simple Word docs that are shared in your office? I don't know how you do it. How have those been useful to you to get up to speed on who your clients are? And do you have any recommendations for tools that you've found or processes that you've found that are particularly helpful?
So we use CRM at Suffolk, and it's been very helpful just as far as tracking accounts and client contacts, and I focus on higher education, and there's a lot of people move from one institution to another, so just like keeping client lists up to date and updating them has been interesting, but it's great to have that system that you can rely on and go to one place to have real-time updates and real-time information. It's been great. And I also oversee the public-private partnership development on a national level. So using technology to work with the other offices in the other regions with Suffolk, and just connecting with different architects and the national developers for student housing and other type of public-private partnership developments has been great. And I think without the resources, and it would be that much more difficult. So using all the tools and the shared drives has been great.
Yeah, we use Deltek as well. It integrates with our intranet, which is neat. We are currently looking into CoCentral. So if anyone has experience with that and wants to share pros or cons, I'm all ears. I'm pretty old school. I saw like a meme recently. It was like the biggest lie I've told myself is that if I don't need to write it down, I'll remember it later. And that very much is true for me. Like there's just something about writing something down that helps me remember it more succinctly and clearly than if I type it. So I tend to write everything down. And the other thing that I like about that is that it enables me to maintain eye contact, because I just don't want someone to think that I'm not paying attention when I'm typing. So I haven't quite mastered that yet, but I do at the end of every week force myself to go through my notebook and amalgamate all my notes. And to Marsha's point of transparency, we also have a number of offices and people do like to keep things close to the vest. So the way that I operate is I share every week, you know, here's who I've met with, here was the outcome of the meeting, here's who I'm meeting with in the coming week, here are my target meetings. And it's open to everybody. If you want to come, if you want to, you know, if you want me to move the meeting so you can be a part of it, if you have intel that you want me to ask about. And then I also, you know, put in different leads that I'm tracking, and sometimes people take them and run with them. Other times people ask me to do things, but it's not actually highly technological at this point, but it works.
And I do want to piggyback off of Sarah's point too, that I know we all have enough meetings in our lives, but I really do think it's important to be proactive with BD meetings, especially if you're dealing with different offices and even different market sectors, to be the champion for them and set up those meetings to talk about those leads and those opportunities with people. Because a lot of time we're so busy and we get this information, but we don't disseminate it. And it's timely information. So it's important to champion that with your.
I would say I followed very similar with both Sarah and Marsha were saying, you know, just collecting notes, handwritten notes, typing them up at the end of the week, putting together a strategy of follow-up, sharing that with, you know, all of the people outside of business development and operations to be an extension of business development, and just making sure we do the follow-up. So the follow-up is so important, and or the follow-through, I should say, as well. So, but it's unsophisticated.
Well, talking about the follow-up, the follow-through is reminding me of another topic that came up, and it was about the unique opportunities that doing business development virtually, or you know, in a future hybrid, presents. And for all those who don't know, this meeting is being recorded. If you zoned out or had to, you know, take care of your toddler during this time, you can go back to watch the recording. If we were meeting at the BSA space, not so much. So, I mean, I think that there probably are a number of unique opportunities that virtual BD has presented us with. One of them perhaps is the ability to record meetings.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to speak to it in the context of when you're doing business development, and like one of our strategies was to do more thought papers, more white papers. And we found that when we're meeting in teams, recording that meeting and just having the engineers talk about these the technical information that they want to get out there, it was priceless. Because now you just can transpose that information and you have it at your fingertips. And then it's like you can turn this into other marketing BD collateral, and you don't have to keep going back to people all the time, asking them, you know, what is this important? What did you say? So that's been fantastic. I really, I mean, just as long as you let everybody know you're recording. So there's no issue with that, but that's been really great. And that's greater than, I guess it's greater in the sense that you're helping out marketing and business development. You know, they're killing two birds in one stone. So.
I think too, I think in the past before COVID, you know, if you were going to meet people on the West Coast or in other offices or other regions around the country, you wouldn't even start the conversations until you set up a meeting weeks out in advance, got on a plane, you know, had an office meeting with them in their office or had a dinner meeting. And, you know, I think now people are more willing just to make those connections virtually through Zoom, and have them sooner. And, you know, with the hopes that you meet in person sometime soon. But I think the premise before that I could never partner with you or work with you until I met you in person, is out the window at this point in time. I mean, I'm sure we'll go back to it to some degree, but I think we're able to make a lot more of those connections and collaboration. And, you know, there was a little bit of slowdown of work for several months. So I think a lot of people spent that time making those connections and developing those partnerships, so that when, you know, these RFQs are coming out, particularly for public-private partnerships, you have those connections and you can jump on a team right away.
Yeah, I think the recording feature is nice. We did mass energy codes changed in November. And so we did an accredited program on that. And we were able to, a lot of people that couldn't attend requested it. And it was just a nice way to reach out to people too, and just drop that in an email. It doesn't hog up space, and it's informative, and it's giving back, and it's educating. That said, I'm terrible about following through on watching things I missed and, or recorded and that I intended to watch or listen to. But I will say they have been good on like state of the market reviews, where there's really a lot of good information in there. And like Marcia said, you can sit there and put your headphones on and take notes and kind of rewind and go back. So yeah.
Sarah, one thing that I noticed that sorry, that's the toddler.
I love
it. She doesn't, apparently.
Aw.
One thing that I've noticed that Knowledge Architecture does, you might know them from your intranet, I'm not sure, is they'll have a recording of a meeting, and then they timestamp particular pieces of information that you might find of interest.
Ooh, that's cool. I haven't seen that, but that's really neat. I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So tune to minute 5, second 37 to learn about this.
It's like Cliff
That could be,
Notes.
yeah,
modern day.
like a bookmark
Yeah.
for the particular person you're reaching out to could be
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah.
Not that I ever use Cliff Notes.
Never. Are some of the educational opportunities that you're talking about COVID specific? I'm wondering whether this time has given you all some insights or just some observations about how we can add value in this strange time of change.
I think residence halls will change a lot going forward. I think people, if they were in the process of designing a new resident hall last January or February, I think they pretty much put it on hold, and they will, as they get students back this semester, and hopefully we're back to full time in the fall. I think a lot of institutions and educational institutes will look at what kind of housing makes the most sense if we ever have a pandemic again in the future. What's going to allow them to keep those residence halls open and keep their students safe. So I think you'll see a lot more suite style private bathrooms. Kitchens are obviously probably the safest, but apartments, but it's also the most costly. So, and you don't want freshmen to be in a situation where they're isolated with apartments and they don't get that full personal interaction and socialization with students and learn how to work and collaborate in groups. So I think that's the biggest thing we'll see a change on. I think we've mastered the whole remote hybrid learning. It's not true online learning as we would think about when I was at UMass, but certainly maybe it was a little more bumpy in March when they had a week to figure it out, but a little more thoughtful and obviously working as prescribed in the fall and now the spring semester as well. So I think those are the biggest changes we'll see.
Right. I've been interested in how we share knowledge and information that's sort of COVID specific, COVID reflexive with clients without appearing to be rubbernecking on tragedy or, using it to some sort of nefarious salesy advantage. And I'm curious about how, you have all towed the line between rubbernecking on tragedy or offering value, additional value to your clients at this time as part of BD.
I know for our healthcare sector, when COVID first hit, just talking about the HVAC systems and offering our expertise on that, and it's their approach. So for business development, just making sure that you're approaching them in a way that is not salesy and never being that way, but just lending them maybe T&M that you're going to work for them. And I know we've had several contracts with hospitals that we come in and we do assessment on COVID for them. So, and I think also because in the beginning when this pandemic first hit, just having a white paper ready for technical staff, putting something out there, and then being really judicious on who you send it to. And it's not like you're doing a blast mailers to your clients, again, being targeted with your business development and showing them, even personal email just to one particular client that you care and that you're genuinely interested. So I think that's really important, and then it shows that you're the leader in what you're doing, but also that again you're genuine, because business development, I mean, that's if people know that you're not sincere, it doesn't come.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Marcia. Being judicious. I think we all have a wealth of information we want to share, but I just one story is kind of seared in my memory, which is in the fall I connected with a client at Harvard, and she was like, you've got 30 minutes, Sarah. What do you want to talk about? And I said, well, I'm new to BR plus A, and I'd like to understand your perception of the firm from working with them, and additionally anywhere that you're struggling. And she's like, oh, thank God, because if you wanted to talk about COVID, I was gonna scream if I get one more email. She's like, I work at Harvard. I have like the largest brain trust of knowledge at my fingertips. Like, I don't need a webinar from your firm. And I was like, okay. Message
Oh,
received.
wow.
So I think, definitely being careful about who your audience is critical. And the other thing is that I've learned from this is just being genuine. I think that this pandemic has broken down some of the hierarchy that has at least prohibited me in the past from reaching out to people or feeling like there's some sort of barrier. Like, we've all struggled through this together. We've all been afraid about our health of our families or our jobs or what have you. And I think in a way that's kind of a fabric that has bound all of us in a more human way. And, that's something that I've found and enjoyed in a strange way through this pandemic and connecting with people.
And I agree with everything that Sarah and Marsha said. At Suffolk, we did have a COVID playbook, just trying to get people safely back on construction sites after some of our jobs were shut down for a few weeks, just making sure people felt comfortable coming back from the trades and our employees. And so we did put together a couple page document that we sent out to our clients, very soft sell, on helping with cleaning or HVAC upgrades or looking at their systems to see how we could be helpful. But, we were here if they needed our help, but, obviously our clients were important to us and we're there to be helpful, but did it in a very delicate way and did some business, but obviously not the core of our business, not something we're going to capitalize on.
I'm wondering, to continue on this theme of how we can bring and add value for our clients, I'm wondering whether there are new tools that you've found to be particularly valuable. For example, I think I was talking to somebody at CBT who said that they are exploring augmented reality tours in a way, with clients in a way that they hadn't previously used them, because people are desperate to be in spaces, even if it's an augmented reality space. Are your firms using tools like those or others that you've found more useful now that we are remote? VR headsets, anyone? No. I'm thinking about video. I'm wondering whether, going to a meet and greet with a lookbook is much better now that it can be on a screen and big. These are the kind of things that it's bringing up for me.
I think that we have VR technology and everything, but for us, I mean, it's still been the PowerPoints or the presentations when we're meeting with clients are much shorter, very succinct. We keep it to 6 slides because we don't want to overwhelm anyone. And so we might do a lookbook, but again, it's generally just some slides, or even it could be just a short video, but we want to make sure that everybody's engaged in the conversation and that we don't monopolize the time. So I just think, I don't know how much technology has changed with that, and just being mindful about how much you're talking about yourself.
we're using a lot of VDC and BIM and drone footage as we look at pursuits, or even you know, when we're in the pursuit. So that's saving a lot of time and money on the actual constructability and constructing. So something we were doing before, but we continue to do it. And you know, you have a lot of videos on site where cam videos where you can watch the actual construction, which is, you know, if for some reason you're in the field and you have to be remote, you can actually, for snowstorm, for example, you can actually look on the camera and see that you're getting your site plowed out. So.
Someone threw into the chat, Jennifer oh gosh, Jennifer, tell me, I'm going to say this wrong. Marpaise. Fix it for me. From Peterson Engineering mentions Matterport as a really useful tool for building tours when we can't be there.
We say Mirapisi, but I don't know if that's right.
Mirapisi, got it. Thank you for that. Yeah, at our firm, we've certainly taken advantage of Matterport and its capabilities. It's been a helpful tool for us. I want to pivot now to this other question that we haven't really had a chance to talk about in our past conversations, but I'm very curious about, has this time been an opportunity to expand who's participating in business development? Are you finding more opportunities, for example, to engage emerging leaders in BD now that you don't have to buy an extra plane ticket, or, you know, other reasons as well?
Yeah,
Definitely. We have emerging leaders, particularly folks in our operations, where we're really focused on getting them more involved in developing them in the business development. And, you know, where you're having Zoom meetings or virtual meetings, it's easier to kind of take them off of their actual building project to spend some time with us on the business development opportunities. So we've definitely been factoring that into our playbook of late.
I think that before the pandemic even hit, we were focusing on our young engineers, because they're the ones that have to come up in the ranks of the company, and you want to keep them building this knowledge base. You just don't want to let it go away when people retire. So I think the pandemic has definitely allowed us the opportunity to showcase the younger generation, and also because we're doing a lot more video. And we set up like our own video studio within our firm so that we can highlight them and just talk about technical topics. But definitely it's an opportunity to get them out in front of clients and be a part of these virtual meetings, and just encourage that, and especially participation, just to show like the diversity within our firm too, since that's been such a big push and a hot topic. So just to not to be disingenuous with it, but now there is time, and you know, just to strengthen the firm itself in the future.
Did you say you had a video, you have a studio in your firm? Has that always been the case? What?
No,
I'm so curious.
We're doing so much video now. We bought a green screen and we allocated space where we have a prompt, a reader, and everything, and a camera tripod. We have the ring lighting so that we could professionally do videos.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's actually really not as expensive as you would think too. We got everything off of Amazon.
That's awesome.
From our professional video guys.
I see Sarah taking notes.
Yeah. No, one thing we invested in that I'd be happy to share this resource if anyone's interested is we did a company Zoom training on just basics of how to position your screen, appropriate lighting, when to chat, when not, when to have your screen off, when's it appropriate to have your screen on, and kind of background noise, as well as just presence and kind of best practices with visuals in meetings to convey a message. And it was a really, for a training for over 400 people, it was very well done. And I think some great tips, and it was a good thing to invest in. And I definitely think prior to COVID, BR plus A was much more siloed in terms of its other offices. And I would say that we feel, from what I've heard anyway, more connected now than we ever have. Interchanging ideas between offices, which has been really nice just because people aren't. Before, to find a spot on multiple people's calendars where they could connect when they were all traveling was nearly impossible. So it is a benefit to have everybody kind of have more time in their schedule, and that has fostered more collaboration between our offices, which has been great.
I'd like to add to what Sarah's saying, that one of the things that our company also, we don't mandate it, but we tell everybody when they have meetings to turn their cameras on. Just little simple things like that, if they're even internal meetings, so that everybody can see each other. And even we're trying to now implement where we have everybody's headshot pushed through on their emails so that everybody can see who they are, because in a larger firm, you don't necessarily know, there's so many people, there's hundreds of people, you don't know them. And that's been nice to be able to connect. And it's nice also when you're dealing with clients, when you pop up initially, it's more than just your name, you've got your picture. So
We at Suffolk have definitely been doing similar things as you, Marsha, as far as videoing, lessons learned, people in the field, and things that they want to show others of how they had an issue and how they resolved it. So we've been definitely taking advantage of that. And one thing I'd want to bring up is, when we first had our first Zoom interview back in probably the April timeframe, when everyone was pushing off their interviews and then decided, well, we're not coming back to work anytime soon, and we need to keep these projects moving. So went to the virtual Zoom interview. So we brought in people to do training, to learn how to be effective and do an interview the best way possible and come across well to the client. So that's definitely been a learning experience. I'd say recently we had an in-person meeting. So now it's like you're going from the virtual meetings back to the in-person, and it's, you're 6 feet apart, you're interviewing with a mask on. So we've had a few of those. So it's an interesting dynamic going back and forth, but I think we're adaptable and making the most of the situations as they arise with our clients. So, and technology is helping us do that. So
I think somebody just really brought up a really good point though about time, and they just stated that it's like,
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
see that, Kate?
Yeah, so I saw Doreen Bennett's comment in the chat.
Yeah.
This is actually Doreen, prescient. This is perfect timing, because I did want to make sure that we saved the last 20 minutes to do a little bit of Q&A. So do you want to go ahead and read out your question, Doreen? I thought that was a really good point.
Oh, sure. I just thought, why do we assume that we have more time now? My schedule is just as busy, probably even more busier, working from home. Maybe because I'm trying to fill in gaps, but it's constantly the Zoom, or research, emails, phone calls, especially when you are one of the people whose the phone is forwarded to your cell phone. So you're constantly, giving out other people's cell phone numbers. Despite the pandemic, my time is very valuable still. So I was wondering if anyone else had that situation where you're just as busy now.
I would totally agree with you, Doreen. I started this role during the pandemic, but it feels like it's every waking moment is everything you just said, as far as phone calls, Zoom chats, doing research, trying to put your client context during normal waking hours and filling in the research and follow-up memos and things of that nature at nighttime. But it's definitely feels like it's constant on the go. And I think you have more efficiency with maybe some meetings where, I've had a few lunches or coffee meetings outside in the summertime or when it was safer. But, you get in the car, you drive somewhere, you park. I think that might take more time. that we're not used to, and we'll get back to being used to doing that before, but now it just seems like that's precious time. But you do get that in-person touch with the person that you're trying to meet with. So it's, I would totally agree with you.
Yeah, and I've struggled with this as well. I think I talked a little bit about it earlier. I think my comment before about, my colleagues having more time, it's just there's an hour opening that's mutually agreed upon in a more closer time frame than previously before. But now, I mean, again, I can't advocate enough for blocking time in your Outlook calendar for yourself, and just to have that, again, I call it a life preserver, so that you have time to do what you need to do, or catch up, or catch your breath, or, pick up children, or make a meal, or go for a walk, or, I do that several weeks out. It was actually an automated thing in my Outlook called Cortana. I have no idea, but it automatically put in focus time into my calendar, and I'm so grateful for that. So it's there every week, and you can customize it. So I highly recommend doing that for your sanity.
Elisa, I saw you, you had your hand raised before. Was that an accident, or did you have a question you wanted to throw to the panel? Alyssa Khan from, yeah, there you are.
Yeah, no,
Hi.
I was fumbling. Sorry, no, I don't have a question. I'm
All right, cool. No worries.
I saw the chat. And why I don't, and then I saw, the corner of the screen is covered with the little hand raised. Yeah, that's a Zoom party foul, I guess. It's one of the
Behave, Elisa.
I'm about to butcher another beautiful name. Elisif Brandon, you can correct me, but I saw you had an interesting question in the chat as well.
Yeah, it's Elisif, that's right. Yeah, I was just wondering if you find you're able to connect with people over Zoom that wouldn't really pick up the phone before, that having more options for connecting in different ways allows you to reach more people by their preferred mode of communication.
I guess I would say that I have to connect with them via phone, but yes, they're open to me for Zoom for, people that I've never met before. Definitely, it's been fine. But again, just giving people the option, whether or not they just want to talk via phone or via, Zoom or whatever they choose, I think that's important. So
I think in the beginning, people were definitely more wanted to do phone calls versus Zoom, but I think people are kind of getting used to it and over kind of that new mode of communication and comfortable with it. And I think you're right. I think other people might not have wanted to spend 45 minutes with you having a coffee or going out to lunch, but a Zoom meeting seems to be some people's comfort spot, which, we can use in the future as well. So
I think the same rules apply that did before. People are more open to meeting via Zoom because they know how to do it, and because we've all had that crash course and we had to learn it. But when I say same rules apply, I mean, I think you're still going to have a greater success rate if you can get a warm intro to someone, or use the warmest avenue to open that door than cold. And, in reflecting on BR+A's log of business, I mean, it's been largely repeat clients. So, as much as I'd love to say, like, we brought in all these new clients over Zoom, it's not that easy. It's hard. It's hard.
There's another comment in the chat I wanted to share, and it's along the same lines as what you were saying earlier, Sarah. It sounds like Nikki has been doing a lot of walking meetings.
Let's meet up, Nikki.
You and your puppies.
Yeah.
It's an amazing how much people seem to appreciate me going to them and finding a quick little walk for 20 minutes or something and helping them get away from the screen.
Oh, you mean in person?
Yeah.
I just assumed phones because that's how I live these days. Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. The puppy and I go and meet somebody, and they sneak out of their office or their home office, and we take a quick 20-30 minute walk, and it's been incredible. People are so grateful for being having the excuse to get out, I think. And of course the puppy helps too. He sort of breaks the ice.
that's great.
Wait, and Kate Wonka, you've got a pandemic puppy too? I didn't know this was such a big thing.
Oops,
All three of you.
I
you could-
do.
yeah,
Hi, Kate.
Yeah,
club.
I do. I have a pandemic puppy, so I've started the walking and talking as well, to get fresh air, get the puppy out, and take a break from video conferencing. And I also highly suggest, I've lowered my standards. I have yoga clothes on, usually waist down, and you wrap, put a pretty scarf on, and you can like do yoga and meditate in between meetings. And I highly recommend that for some good mental breaks. Even 15 minutes of stretching, because we're not moving as much, is really good for our mental and physical health.
Love it.
A Cortana asana. There you go, Sarah.
Yeah. By the way, Judy Nitch is, I think, the queen of outdoor meetings, and she's retired. And she was recently on a Zoom showing all the photographs she had of her out on these walks, masked up walks that she did with people in her network all throughout the pandemic. And I love it.
I'm inspired.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm not getting a puppy, but maybe I'll get a fish like Doreen.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. If nobody else has one, feel free to shout it out. But my question has to do with the next normal and what I'm asking for some prognostication from our sages. I am fascinated by thinking about what will happen when some of us return to the office. Some of us have moved out to, you know, the middle of the Adirondacks, some beautiful location, very remote to the office, and have no intention of returning. And how will we conduct business development when some people are masked up and in person and some people are very far away? How can we democratize that? How can we share that in an effective way? Have you been looking forward to or bracing yourselves for that transition period?
I think we'll all have to adapt to what people are comfortable with. I mean, I think we saw that in the springtime when we could go out and start meeting people outside, and sitting 6 feet apart, and then having lunches outside. And then I think when it got colder and the numbers went up, people kind of shied away from that. So I think we're just going to have to be adaptable. A lot of people have moved, so I think it'll be a combination of in-person and remote and Zoom. And I think it'll just be the way it is. And who knows if office space if everyone will be back in downtown Boston, because they're not going to want to take public transportation if they need to, or go up in packed elevators. So I think we'll see a lot of changes, and we're just going to have to adapt to them as they come. And I think you're seeing companies be a lot more flexible than they may have been in the past, right?
And I think definitely that it's important to still set the meetings to have both those flexibility. I think that if you're going to have a meeting, you could still send a Zoom or Teams request so that you give people the ability to meet virtually but still meet in person, if having those dual capabilities, because it does depend. And I know that I've heard from a lot of people in business development that they're not going to go back to the office the way they were, because I mean, it's been great that they've been able to work from home, where they can just go straight to meetings without having to be in an office space. So
I think I'm hopeful we'll go to some sort of hybrid, where it's both in person and at home, and just in general that people will have greater flexibility in their lives to, whether it's be with their children or work on their health or avoid sitting in the car for a long commute. Prior to the pandemic, I started in February, so like a month and a half before kind of the wheels came off. And I had a woman come into my house at 6 a.m. to wake up my children, get them dressed, get them out the door, just so that I could make sure I was to work by 7:45, even if I didn't need to be there for any particular reason, just because I wanted to follow the corporate standards and culture. And it pained me to do that, to be honest. And, I'm not going to do that again, even when we return. I don't need to do that again. And so I think those are some of the positives I hope to see come out of this, that sort of flexibility. And, you know, I think, Trisha, you alluded to it before, we're kind of dealing with it now. And same with you, Marsha, like I'm open to meeting with people in person if it's, you know, within their comfort zone. I end up getting tested about every other week. So I think we're all kind of adapting in real time now to it. I mean, you'll have a meeting with someone who's sitting in an open office and they've got a mask on the whole meeting, you know, and I think we're all pivoting in real time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any other questions from the group? Oh, Judith Fagan. Oh, woman after my own heart. Judith, do you want to share your comment? Judith might be
I
looking.
needed
There she is.
unmute. Yeah, I was saying that I was hoping for hybrid too, because I sent handwritten thank you notes to people, and that makes me stand out. Plus, I have a whole pen and ink collection. And there's no office to send things to anymore. Over the pandemic, I've been sending things, and it's like, oh, I haven't been in the office for 5 months, or I don't get anything from the office anymore. It's driving me nuts. So I'm hoping for some kind of hybrid, or at least someone in the office.
I think you'll get that.
Yeah, that's something that came up in our conversation too. All of this time that people used to spend developing physical, you know, collateral to mail to somebody. Well, gosh, that was an unfortunately laid plan this past year, huh?
Yeah, I know it happened to us. We celebrated our 70th anniversary this year. We had a whole anniversary mailer series that was supposed to go out to clients, but we actually had to cancel our New Year's card because it was a culmination of that 70th anniversary. We just didn't feel it was going to get the impact. And Judith, like you, I like to write handwritten thank you notes to clients for BD meetings, because I think it's a nice touch, because I'm over all the emails and it just seems so impersonal. But I actually had to get people's home addresses because like they weren't in the office anymore. And it was different. It was like, how do I get this to you? So that was a challenge.
Any last thoughts? I think we've got just a couple more minutes on the clock. So I know there are lots of things we didn't talk about. Any parting words of wisdom or thoughts that you want to leave us with, ladies?
No, just thank you for sharing your precious morning hour and a half with us. It's a real pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone too. It was great to be here. I'm in a newer industry and it's great to meet all of you. And, you know, it was nice to hear everybody's insights and how we're all pivoting, and we're all in the same boat. I think sometimes we forget. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only person at home and everyone's out doing their life, but we're not. We're all in the same boat.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. It's a real pleasure. So we hope it's been beneficial.
And be kind to yourself. We're all working so hard. It's easy to be hard on ourselves, but
Great advice.
you know.
Thanks for coming, everyone. And thanks for, there's some new faces here. I'm glad you found us. We typically meet every fourth Wednesday on Zoom at 8:15. So keep your eyes open. The BSA sends out notifications. We also have a LinkedIn page. We share our meetings there, and we're putting something together for February. I don't know if I can share it yet, but stay tuned. Looking
Thanks,
forward to it.
Sandy and Kate,
Thank you all
too.
very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been great. Take care, everyone. Stay
Bye.
safe.
See
Be
you.
well.
Stay.
Go walk your dog.
Thank you. I will.
Yeah, the chat box